everybody can hear me okay back there? Okay, well, I'm not gonna talk much, but, all right, so we're gonna start tonight with a budget presentation, for the proposed budget. We will then open it up to public comment, so you all have copies of both the PowerPoint and then the budget itself. If you all have pens or pencils, make your comments on the PowerPoint, so then afterwards will be the questions, clarification, we'll then get through the whole presentation. After that, we're gonna go into a regular meeting, and at that point, public forum and so on, and we're going to discuss changes to the budget and adopt it, and then discuss the warrant articles. So that's the plan for the evening. So we are going to start with the budget presentation.
I don't know that I need the microphone. Can everyone hear me? Or would you prefer I use the microphone?
That's okay, I'm not
Okay. It's gonna be a little bit challenging to do both, so. So this evening, I'd like to welcome the community to the 23-24 presentation of the school district budget. Many of you folks have been to our regular meetings, and you've already had a preview of the budget. Nothing has changed, in terms of the bottom line numbers. So the school district and the school board go through a specific process when they get ready to build a budget for the following fiscal year. We start in December. The board provides the administration with budget guidance. The public has been invited to all meetings that we've had in December and in January, and this evening's meeting, and have had the ability to provide input to the school board on what they've seen to the date. The administration collectively develops a budget with your choice schools in terms of their tuition rates, your local school, Croydon Village School, with Nicole's budget to run her operation. Draft 1 was presented to the public in December, and this evening is the public hearing, and there will be a final vote at the end of the regularly scheduled meeting for the school board to potentially adopt this budget to move forward to district meeting on March 18th. The school board provides the administration with a set of budget principles. They're similar to what they were last year, and it's to develop a fiscally responsible budget that supports a quality education for all your students in Croydon's grades K through 12. We follow an open and transparent process, sharing with the school board and the public all the ins and outs of the budgets, any changes that are happening at the local or the state level that are included in this budget. We try to be as innovative about staffing, understanding that we have 3 teachers, and we have 2 support staff members, and a host of contracted servers to support our students at Croydon Village School. We continually work on maintaining our school buildings. We do have some ESSER funds that are in play that hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit of work on the red building in terms of heating and cooling. And the superintendent works diligently to take advantage to any funding that's out there, either local or federally. And then we create goals to ensure that we have responsible balances in the trust funds. And you will see the balances of those trust funds are at the bottom of the expense sheet and are reported every June 30th at the end of the fiscal year. So currently, you can see the enrollment. We have a breakdown for you of where all of our students are this year. At Croydon Village School, we have listed 26. Nicole may have an addition to that, but as of this printing, we have 26. 9 in kindergarten, 4 in first grade, 2 in second grade, 4 in third grade, and 7 in fourth grade. Our choice schools this year, we have students at Newport, at Montessori, at Sunapee, Claremont, Kimball Union Academy, Mount Royal, and ATI, which is an online school. We have a total of 54 students in grades 5 through 12. Our total enrollment is 80 students currently. Our projected enrollment for 2024 24 is 77. And the difference really is the attrition with fourth graders moving up, kindergartners coming in, and seniors going out. So we're looking at 21 students at Big White and Little Red next year. We do want to make note that currently at Montessori, we're only budgeting for 10. We have been told that Montessori will not be accepting
Most likely.
fifth grade students this coming fall. The budget summary, the expense and revenue. Total budget is $1,704,000 and change. It is a decrease of $737 over the current fiscal year. Our non-tax revenue, which includes local revenue, state revenue, and federal revenue. Those are your non-tax revenues, and we can go through those on your revenue sheet. Total $749,541. So what that means is we need to raise $955,218 to support this budget in the next fiscal year. That is an increase of $35,856. So we generally go category by category to show what the changes are in the budget. There's relatively little change in this budget. The staffing is identical to what it currently is. The only change is all staff members were given a 5% increase in this budget by the school board. Tuition numbers reflect our current demographics. A little bit of a change at the high school level, and you can see because we have a reduced number of students. Special education costs are developed with student individual plans in mind. There's no change in guidance, health, curriculum, library, information services, or school board. There's a slight change in the SAU, and again, this is based on the new contracts and the addition of a part-time administrative assistant that is housed in the SAU and in the principal's line item. So it's in two categories. Employee benefits, principal's office, you'll see a rather large decrease. And folks who've watched over the last year know that we've had a mentor, principal mentor. Dr. Peroti's been principal mentor for Nicole. Nicole, at the end of this year, will have her principal certification, so we'll no longer need to have that mentor line item. So that comes out of that category. Employee benefits are slightly up, and that's just based on the cost of the individual insurance plans. Federal grants is flat. Building operation is slightly up, and that's just based on electrical, propane, and fuel costs. We have had to also increase slightly our hourly rate for our custodian. Transportation is tied to the current contract that we have with Butler Bus. That is slated to be a 6% increase in the next cycle. There was quite a lot of discussion at our meeting 2 Saturdays ago about transportation. So that'll be an area that we look at in the coming year in terms of how that transportation is provided. Food service, expenses equal revenues. We don't have a cafeteria. We contract our food service from Grantham, and the school board supports that category with financial resources for students. And that $9,525 in the transfer is for food service. So, yeah.
Can you just remind us,
Sure.
I understand the minus 25,000 in the principal's office, but I see the increase on the regular instruction. Can you just explain for the folks here sort of where that is coming from on the very top line of that?
Sure. So your regular instruction category includes certified salaries. So we have the 5% increase to all the certified salaries along with the paraprofessionals. We also have in that category an increase in starting rate for the new certified position that we'll be bringing in as compared to the prior year. So there is no staffing change in that category. It's all salary driven.
And the actual of that could change depending on our hiring and how well we do when we find a new person. So it's an estimate.
It's an estimate, yeah, because there's a position that's not hired at this point. So overall, the operating budget is $737 less than the budget that was voted on last May. So at our last meeting, the school board chair requested that the SAU costs be broken out for folks to see. So we have a 22-23 and a 23-24 cost for the whole category, and you can see superintendent / special ed director, 83,383, business services, 57,297, administrative support, 1722, FICA and workman's comp, 12,688. There are no physical benefits, meaning medical, dental, 403B. There are no salary benefits outside of federally mandated benefits for these positions. And then you have telephone supply, dues and fees and equipment. So you can see the bottom line, 9,170 up over prior year.
And just for clarity for the group, the principal cost that's coming out is from a different budget
Different
category,
category.
not the SAU.
No, so the principal, the 25,000 that's coming out, comes out of the principal category. And you can see that on your expense draft. If you look down through your functions, you'll see principal's office and you'll see a reduction of 25,000. So another piece that we were asked to calculate, and this is a little bit trickier, and Jody and I had lots of conversations about how you allocate your SAU costs across all your students. So just for example, the cost per student is $2,105, and you multiply that by 80 students and you could get a demographic number and attribute it to each school. But that's not really reality. That's not how this works. What we did is we took the portion of our time that we believe we spend working on high schools or working in the local district. And the local district is where the bulk of our time is spent. Frank will spend more time at high schools if there are special ed needs, because he's the local education agent and he has to go there. But it's challenging to put a specific number to high school. So we broke it down 3377. In years past, we've done it 50-50. 67? What's that?
We're off by 10%.
3367, sorry. Yes, 7786, yeah, hello, 67. Thank you. So for transparency's sake, there's the SAU costs. So each year we do provide major categories to give folks an idea of where's the money really being spent in your budget. So this is the whole budget, the 1,704,000. 69,500 is special education. 950,000 is tuition. 132,000 is benefits. 346,000 is salary, and 208,000 makes up everything else, meaning transportation, food service, professional development, library guidance, all those small categories.
And transportation might almost warrant its own bar here because it's nearly the same cost as the entire special education
It could,
budget.
yep, it could.
And that would be another.
Yeah, it would just be,
Another,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so over here, what we do is we actually do break out the costs that are attributed to middle and high school. So your middle and high school budgets, out of the 1,704,000, take up $1,050,000. You can see grades 5 through 8 tuition, grades 9 through 12 tuition. High school special education is budgeted at $15,000, and that's specifically for additional services that are not covered by the tuition that the district pays. Sometimes there are added costs that they need to bill back to us for students. Transportation for the high school, Newport Run, roughly $30,000. And the administration, meaning the SAU, $53,655. So then we do the same thing for the two buildings next door. Cost to run those buildings in this budget, $605,000. There's your special ed cost, $68,000. Benefits, $119,000. Salary, $203,000. Transportation, $47,000. Administration, $125,000, and everything else just about $40,000. And again, it's just to visually see what are the big pockets, where's the money going. So to support this, this diagram is basically just a very simple pie chart that says, here's all the money. This is how we support this budget. The local money, $204,000, is made up of any end of the year surplus that's left at the end of this fiscal year, along with any other revenues locally that we might get, which are that's not tax, it's just other funds that might come into the district. On the state side, you have adequacy aid, and you have state swept. So on your tax bill, you'll see two education taxes. One of them is what you raise for taxes for the local budget, and one of them is state swept. Okay? Both of those pots of money come back to the district. Both raised, both come back. That's the $537,820. The federal teeny tiny little slice is federal grants. So the way the federal grants work, if we have $60,000 worth of expenses for federal grants, we're gonna have $60,000 worth of revenue. It always matches. It's always gonna match. And everything else that gets raised is your local tax. So this evening, for the budget hearing, we have 3 warrant articles. That's not to say that that's where this is gonna land, but the 3 warrant articles are, here are the reports of the agents, the operating budget to see if the district will vote to raise whatever dollar figure the board lands on tonight. Right now, it's $1,704,559. And to transact any other business that may come before this body. The school board may opt to add a warrant article tonight to add money to the tuition trust fund, as an example. So there may be an additional warrant article, but as of right now, we have just the 3. So the bottom line, what is this budget going to cost us? We have an operating budget of $1,704,000. We have offsetting revenue, the 3 slices on the diagram. Those are revenues that are going to go against that budget of $750,000. Means we need to raise $955,000. Your current tax rate as set in November is $7.48. This is your local school tax rate. This budget to raise an additional almost $36,000 is going to cost 29 cents. So the tax rate projected for next fall is $7.77. On a $100,000 home, that's about $30, $200,000, $59, and $300,000, $88. And again, those numbers change if the board decides to change that expense budget. But as of this reading, $7.77. So what does that look like? So this is our fancy let it go years and years and years graph. We'll just focus on 20 to 23. You can see your total tax rate on the top, $13.96, $14.22 last year, $14.22 this year. And your school rate is in the burgundy, $5.90, $7.22, $7.48, $7.77, which is what we're projecting. And at that point, that will conclude the PowerPoint part of this presentation. So I'm going to turn this over to Jody, and we'll take questions.
So I think what I'd like to do is not have you turn that off.
Oh, sorry.
Because people might have questions about specific slides, you know, I do. And so, why don't we just go through the slides and see if people have questions, and then, you know, move on. I mean, my first question is on, they're not numbered, well, it's related to current enrollment. If there's anything before that, step up to the mic. Okay. Slide 4.
I think it was just the budget principles that were before that slide.
Okay. So, so we mentioned that, Montessori, that we're not allocating any money for Montessori students for next year. And I wanted to be more specific about what we understand about it. That it, basically, Ms. Christie said that at the moment, she doesn't have room for any Croydon kids except if there are family members already there. I don't know if that's a guarantee, but, those are the words. So that, I mean, I wanted you to know exactly what she said for those who are interested. Instead of just probably, right? Anyway, that's me.
So they would be priority for openings that happen.
If she gets openings.
Right, if she gets an opening, they will be
Even better
prioritized.
information. Thank you.
And my question with that is more looking ahead to future years. Do we expect that that's going to kind of keep moving up the grade ladder? And will we be sort of shut out of Montessori at some point?
No, what she said was that when kids, their lower school, they only have room for 20, and their upper school, they have room for 30. So when the kids move into sixth grade, so after fifth grade, then there's the opportunity for some slots to open up because they have more spaces.
That would be two moves for kids if they went from Croydon Village School to there. It wouldn't be room for fifth grade, but there would be for sixth.
Right, she said she in the email she sent, she also said that she would have supported or did support fifth grade being here. Remember, that was one of our discussions last year, was keeping fifth grade here because that would save a lot of money. Because we would be able to take care of those kids with our current staff, because we have room within our rooms to increase the numbers that small amount, so. Anyway,
But
but
still,
that would work well for her. If we kept the fifth, then she would have space for us again.
right, but if EFAs grow, there might not even be room then. So EFAs, education freedom accounts,
Oh, right.
if they grow,
That's what it was.
like there are bills to expand
Oh,
it, for
exactly,
example.
yeah. So I'm just, anything I say will be based on what is currently in place, and there's all kinds of things that could
Right, but
change.
Aaron's asking about moving forward. So
Right, and
that's-
I couldn't remember what it was, but that's what it was. It's people now have more options for paying for Montessori, so there's gonna be more demand on that school,
Right,
and we might be second fiddle.
yeah.
And Fran, did you tell
And
us
other
about?
independent schools as well.
Sorry,
Other independent schools as well.
right, can you tell us about, Mount Royal?
Yeah, Mount Royal, their situation is they believe they have openings. Derek was pretty clear that he does not believe he could accommodate all 7 of our fourth graders, but they would have space for some of them.
But probably they don't all want to go there, so.
Right, we haven't, we don't know that yet. And they also would come for an open house. He was very interested in coming again like he did last year.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. All right, my next question is on change by category for food services. Do some parents pay for the, yes, thank you, because you said that the school board allocated the budget for it, but parents said is more in for the revenue source, right?
So do you have just the difference between the 95-25 and the 11-5-25 is parent payment? You have to balance the budget.
Do we know what the percent is, or?
Well, 2,000 divided into 11,000, so,
No, how many pay versus what we're actually paying?
no, I don't have a chart of who pays. I would say probably, 35%. Is that
Yeah, we have some families that
pay faithfully? And
faith, and then others that are under the same. Or don't.
Can you clarify that whole thing for
Food service?
Yeah.
Sure.
Food service and transfer.
So food service, if you look on your revenue sheet, you'll find revenues for food service in the amount of $11,525. So food service is lunch. Yep, the school runs a lunch program. And the lunch program, we contract with Grantham Village School. And the food comes from Grantham Village School each day to service our students. On the revenue side, you will see $2,000 in food service revenue, and that means those funds are coming from parents. And you'll see a transfer of $9,525. Those two added together equal $11,525, which balances the account. You have to have an expense line item for the $9,525, which is what the district is paying towards the lunch program. Okay, so the expense, the $11,525 is for the program, meaning Grantham Village School, those we have to pay them for our lunches. We receive $2,000 in revenue ballpark throughout the school year from parents. The additional $9,525 is made up from local tax revenue. And that was a school board decision several years ago.
Well, that was instead of going for a federal program.
That's right. We don't belong to the National School Lunch Program.
And that was recommended by the superintendent.
That was recommended by the superintendent.
Angie?
I just don't understand why it's on there 2 times.
Because you have to raise the $9,525. That's a bill that the district has to pay for lunch.
I understand Angie's question.
Yes.
No, you're adding it in twice. You're adding 11,525 and 9,525.
You're paying the $11,525 to Grantham. You have an expense for $9,525 that shows up as a revenue, right? It's a revenue. At the end of the year, that is a transfer that goes to offset your lunch program. You're paying for that as the district.
Why does that show up as a revenue you said before? And I'm just.
So, yeah,
So
your food service category, all total. So if you look at just food service, category 3, the program costs $11,525. On the revenue side, you have budgeted $2,000 in cash and $9,525 in revenue. That revenue is a check. If you think about it this way, that's cut from the general fund to your bank account.
But so's the 11,525.
No, it's not. That's going to,
525 is out.
that's out. That's going to Grantham.
So it would, basically, it would be a lot easier if the transfers was a subcategory of, and it was obvious.
So the transfer is a subcategory in your line-by-line budget.
Yeah.
So it's not in food service. So think of food service as its own fund. We call it Fund 3. Food service cost is $11,525. Food service revenue is $11,525. The way that you get the revenue is by cutting a check from the district to the food service account of $9,525. You have to raise that money in order to pay for the lunches.
I guess just the way it's written is confusing because it looks like it's $20,000 for.
It's not. No, it's not. So you always have a transfer category for food service, no matter how small or large your district is, because you have to balance the food service budget.
Are all numbers being counted in the 1.7 million?
Yes, because you have to raise the $9,525 to support the program.
Yeah.
You have to balance out your food service
But then
budget.
it comes back at
Comes-
the end of the year.
At the end of the year, it comes back as a revenue. That's right. Yep. Easiest way to put it is on a piece of paper. So the district has an expense for food service, $11,525 going over to Grantham. That money is being cut out of your checkbook, we're paying Grantham $11,000. To pay for that, the district has $2,000 in cash that's coming in from parents. And the district has an expense of $9,525 that's going to be deposited into that food service account, making it balance to $11,525 on each side.
So I understand it, but I don't understand why you have it in there twice for the bottom line.
It's not in there twice.
They cancel each other out, basically.
They cancel each other out. When you're taking money from your general fund and you're cutting a check from the general fund to deposit into food service to balance it to $11,525.
I just have to accept this because I don't understand it.
I have,
We've been there.
I just want to win, that center code for this, that white 24 proposed, I just copied it over to Hi, Beth.
Hello.
Just on a whim while you were talking, I
Yeah.
copied and pasted that proposed 24 column over to my Excel doc and just did a quick total. And if I leave out that 132,450 for the benefits, it does indeed add up to that 1.704759. But if I include that 132,000, then I'm getting a total of 1.833 million.
I'm not looking at what you're looking at, so I think let's just keep moving on this until I can open my spreadsheet, because I can't open it right now.
She will in a minute.
I'll open it as soon as we're done.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know you explain this every few years to us, I get that, but anyway, I'm gonna ask a different question.
So I have the answer to your question, sorry. I might as well, employee benefits, this is not the budget. This is just a consolidated version of all the categories. Those employee benefits, that actually is in the budget, is an offset to each category. If you look at the physical budget, you'll see a category that says employee benefits, and it's a wash. So there's 132,000 in every benefit category, and then it washes against itself, and it's in the actual budget, so
And what you'll see.
that's not, yeah.
Actually, in the line by line, you'll see that they include benefits in each of the sections, but then there's a separate section for benefits, and that doesn't get added into the total.
No.
I think that's the same thing.
It is, what it does though is it tells you what each benefit costs, medical, dental, just so you could see what each of those categories are costing you, because in the individual categories, it's just the total of all the benefits. Okay?
So I do have another question about the food services. Why, I mean, is it that, why only $2,000, right? Is it that, all the other parents can afford it and they show that, or what?
I bill at the end of every month, and I have a spreadsheet of what they owe, what they pay, all of that. And this is the amount that I get back. From there, I cannot tell you.
So some people don't have that.
Well, we do also have free and reduced.
Yeah.
Even though we're not part of the National School Lunch Program, we do take free and reduced applications. And Nicole's gonna factor that into her spreadsheet in terms of,
We honor,
qualifies.
right, we honor
Yep.
that.
We honor the free and reduced program, even though we're not part of the National School Lunch Program.
But that's really all we should be paying out of our tax dollars. Everybody else should be paying for the food, right?
Theoretically.
Ideally, yes, it should be, but who's gonna make it pay? We're gonna hire a lawyer.
I would think you need a lawyer, I mean, you need, and maybe the assistant, this is something they can do reminders, they can make phone calls, they can get tablets, right?
You're saying, I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you're the one that's responsible for this, or that's doing it anyway, right?
Mhm.
So that's what then this would be your assistant, right?
Potentially.
I mean, that's what's in the budget, that's what we're proposing right now. So let's speak as if it's happening, then that person might be able, this might be one of her, or his, roles, right?
Potentially, yes, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you. So I was just gonna note, because it's something I think a lot of people might not be aware of, that both on a state and a federal level, the percentage of students that get or qualify for free or reduced lunch is a marker of poverty, and it influences how much money we get as a school system from the state. It influences grant applications. It's quite important, actually, that we do that, even though we're not part of USDA food program. And it's an across the country problem that it's underrepresenting poverty, because a large percentage of the people who would be eligible do not return to loans. I don't know how that is.
Yeah, we worked really hard to try to get them back because it affects the ADM adjustments as well. So our
And Title
adequacy
I.
aid can change depending on what that level is. And it also affects our grants and how we qualify for grants. So we do work really hard to try to get those all back. We don't always get them all, but we make the effort because it is important.
Do we get a good return for the upper grades and for people who are not in public schools?
Nothing for people who are not in our, other than our building, we just get our K.
Only your local district.
Exactly, we just get
Yeah.
paid for.
If you only get K-4, we're probably not getting as much as we could.
You talking about adequacy money, or are you talking about food? And because they're not getting any food service money? No,
It's not,
no,
it's
adequacy money.
it's that free and reduced is a marker.
She's talking about the paperwork to get back.
Yeah.
I
They
see,
have
so
it as a
that's
data
what you're
point.
doing it, so we don't know for the older kids,
And
possibly.
it affects our adequacy.
It does, yeah,
It is, I know that it is,
yeah, it could be.
I know statistically it is a real problem in high schools and sometimes middle schools too, where kids don't want to, they'd rather go hungry than be embarrassed or something. And, yeah, so it's a real problem, actually.
Correct me if I'm
Personally,
wrong.
I wish we could change it to not call it free reduced lunch, and just have it be some kind of tool that helps school districts get the money that they're entitled to for education. I'll just add one other thing. There's, I think, 4, don't hold me to that exactly, I think there's 4 bills before Education Committee looking at different ways to adjust what the state does or does not do related to food service funding. So depending on what happens with them over the next few months, it could be the same or different.
So if I understand this correctly, if we were just to have the town pay that $2,000 and give every kid free lunch, our marker would be 100%. And we might make the money back. That could actually become a profit center for the school.
You still have to have the parents fill out the form to officially receive that.
So they have to, so we're filling out forms, but not actually using forms except in turn.
Right, we fill out the forms because we have to turn in a report every year, or twice a year actually, on how many students we have who are on free lunch and how many are on reduced lunch. Because the state keeps track of those numbers.
And they have to actually qualify, or they just ask?
Yeah, no, they have to qualify, and it's a bureaucratic mess, not a mess, it's a bureaucratic,
Thing.
yeah, thing, it takes time, and,
Can the kids apply directly because they have no money?
yeah, because it, and it gets audited, I mean, we have to, it's nuts. It's just the way it is.
And you're saying that, folks don't fill out those forms because there's some embarrassment, and I'm just wondering,
That's my,
how would they know, like, how would other people know if they're all getting the same lunch and, You know what I mean? Like,
And that's one of the things that you have to be very careful of if you're in that program, is to make sure that children are not identifying. And so they're very sophisticated numbering systems to keep track of all
right,
that.
so it's very anonymous is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I'm just wondering, why would they be afraid to put the form in?
The teachers or the principal would not, maybe that's enough.
Frank and I, yeah, and that
Yeah,
very well could be enough for those families to not
My
want to.
kids refused to buy school lunches in high school because with all the protections that are in place, and didn't matter how good or bad the food was, they just felt that that was associated with being reduced, and so they didn't go out and grab lunch. I'm like, you guys are nuts, I used to get double lunches. So, anyway.
Thank you. I just want to say something that went right in with what both Hope and Liam were saying, maybe to expand that conversation a little bit. We always told kids, told families, everybody fill it out even if you don't want to buy lunch. Because the information itself, and the reason it works that way is the questions that are asked all informed. What is your family income? How many people live in your house? So that we're getting a poverty level through the form, even though it's kind of confidential. And that information then was used for things like grants and Title I money and whatever. But what my question is then, in tangent with that, well, that's great because it does show that we have poverty even if the kids are not buying a single carton of milk. Is if a child is at Newport High School, say, and the school then hands out forms, and those forms come back, and that child is on a reduced free lunch at Newport High School, would that money then, or would that data go as a Newport thing, or is the data actually stating that's a Croydon kid and it comes back to us? Is there a way that works? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do not know. The state pulls that information together and they have that. They know our students are there. So they pull that together. We never see it here.
And I know that, I was just wondering, I guess maybe that question's for you. Would the state know that even though they're different schools, these are Croydon children, and this represents our Croydon school district's poverty level?
I can follow up on that, I think the
Am I
answer.
making any sense?
Yeah, you're making lots of sense. I think the answer is they would know that if the person has a Croydon address, but since some of us don't have Croydon, I don't know if the form says mailing address or residential address, like some people have Newport address, some people have Southern address. Maybe somebody else around.
So they can go by school code.
I
was just curious.
No, that's a good question.
Because the forms come from your school, the forms don't come from Croydon.
Right, and the broad answer is,
Right,
Croydon kids,
No, we don't get that.
So that's what she's asking.
the number of Croydon kids who would be eligible for free or reduced price lunch at any grade level should influence the money coming to Croydon.
Yeah,
As we make our children's education regardless of where they live. So, yeah. it's
It doesn't work
But
that way.
It doesn't. So the adequacy education formula is based on the local school. So the average daily membership here, which last year is about 24, that's what we get. We don't get adequacy payments for all the kids that are in the surrounding schools.
kids.
No.
No.
No, the adequacy formula is tied to your local school. So when you put your ADM in, meaning your average daily membership, it's the Croydon School average daily membership. That's what our adequacy is based on.
So Newport then gets our tuition plus the adequacy money.
But the ADM is built into the formula for your tuition rate setting. So they take that ADM as part of your tuition calculation.
Oh my God, okay.
So if I can try and bring it back to what we were looking at, am I right that you're gonna use this presentation in a revised form at the annual meeting?
Revised, not exactly this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering with this slide, whether it might be helpful and avoid some of the confusion that sparked that whole conversation, if we had a little asterisk noting that some of the numbers reflect revenue. And it's not just expenses.
Yeah, we won't use this one. We'll use a different one.
Awesome.
But we, just, for clarifying though, we always show that. And on your budget, you see that right at the very end of your budget. And you can look over the years. Yeah, got hung up on it. It's a good conversation to have though.
No, I'm actually gonna make a suggestion there. The point of this is to explain to the public what our actual expenses are. And that detailed transfer, it should be in the line item budget. It doesn't have to be in the presentation to the public, because it just confuses them.
Well, the federal grants, I mean, that's revenue transfers,
And it transfers, it's a wash. It's a wash.
I'm wondering about that, not only the transfers, but also the federal grants. So getting that money in, where does it specifically go when it goes out?
Different places.
Different vendors, different categories. It's gonna go to
So
different.
why doesn't it go to the vendors or whatever that money is actually spent on, instead of putting in, we're spending federal grant money of $7,500, but we're not telling you where it's going.
Well, we can't tell you where it's going until we actually
Spend it?
I
Okay,
mean,
but
so the budget itself in federal grants, and you could have 5 different federal grants that you may get next year. We're saying you're going to get IDEA, which is special education. Well, we always get special education to some degree. We don't know that number today. We won't know that number until next September or October, but we know we're going to have grant money.
we're gonna spend
And
it.
Well,
you're
it's
gonna spend it on special ed costs.
Right, for the presentation purposes, you
Yeah.
probably could just put special ed in there, because the
Yeah.
only one you've got is.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's also professional development, there's also facilities, there's all sorts of.
Yeah, but the only,
I think you're referring to the pie graph where it had the 7,500 for.
That's income, right?
It's income.
But now you've got it as an expense item where you use it to total up to $1,700,000. So, just to say, okay, we got that income, we're gonna spend it somewhere, but it's not itemized anywhere on that chart other than federal grants.
And usually in the district meeting, the annual meeting, there is a list of what we have, what federal grants we get, and they're explained.
Yeah,
So
but I
that-
can't answer questions.
Yeah.
So ideally, what normally happens, you have 3 funds. You have the operating budget, you have federal grants, and you have food service. Okay, so all of those categories need to balance. So federal grants, if it's 7,500, it's 7,500. If it's food service, 11,000, it's 11,000. The remainder will be for the operating budget for the district. Another way to show it is just to break those out and just pull them out and put them on the side.
Yeah.
You can do it that way as well.
Yeah, there's about $40,000, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000 in grants that I write every year for various categories, but they're in their own fund. And I believe that's how that's done.
No, you do. You do budget for it. You do budget for it. You do have to show the expense and you do have to show the revenue.
As income, we don't plan on receiving all of
Nope.
those grants,
No.
that we hope
No.
to get next year.
So I think Kevin helped me figure out why this was so confusing when he added up all those numbers. This is not sum, although it looks like a sum.
Right. It is not a sum.
Right, that piece of information is critical to
Yep.
understanding this, that you are just showing changes
Yep.
in items, and so that number at the bottom looks like, if I see a spreadsheet and I see a number like that at the bottom, it looks to be
So it's
like.
not a total, it's another line item.
It doesn't say total on it.
I know it doesn't.
It does not say total on
It
it.
does, but it's nothing.
Okay, Okay, just for the sake of this slide, this is just an up and down. That's it. It is not, last year's budget was $1,705,000. This year's budget that we're looking at is $1,704,000. That is not a compilation of all the items up above it. Okay?
Right,
It's,
Well, my suggestion would be to add another line.
I think-
Just makes up the
I think the
difference.
suggestion,
Eliminating this slide.
just take the slide out, it just really, it was not meant to be challenging.
In fact, what you should do is add a category, you can not make it the last.
There you go.
item. Then it does look like a sum.
There you go.
Ready?
there we go.
Okay, there we go.
Angie,
I actually have a question related to the previous
Oh,
one.
yeah.
And where we have a decrease, so it looks like the only reason our taxes are going up 29 cents is because we have a decrease of revenue.
Yeah.
Why do we have the decrease in revenue?
So if you look at your adequacy aid, so you have three categories that you want to look at. Your surplus. So your surplus year to year is never going to be equal. It's never gonna be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. It doesn't really work that way, particularly when you budget for tuition the way that the district budgets for tuition, right? You budget for every student to go to Newport, knowing that not everybody's gonna go to Newport, so you're gonna have a surplus in tuition money. You're gonna raise more than you actually spend. So your surplus year to year goes down $51,000. Okay, year to year, the year we just got done, the year we're projecting right now, the change is $51,000. Your adequacy grant goes down $28,500. So 51, 61, 71, you have $78,000 in decreases. And anyone who has followed the SWEP this year, you have an increase of 42,000 in SWEP.
that's a big one. What page are you looking at?
Looking at the revenue draft,
Oh,
okay, single sheet. When you net those all together, you have a $36,000 reduction in revenue. Year that you just finished to the budget that you are looking at. Yeah.
Is our adequacy grant, so it's projected to go down 28,000 and change, is that because of your students?
It's because of your ADM, so the state of New Hampshire, right around November 15th, does a preliminary grant assessment for the following year for districts to be able to budget. In that, they're going to take your ADM number, where they believe it's going to land, and they give you a projection. So this is based on the state's projection for next fall. And your adequacy is always tied to average daily membership. So they take the fall numbers that were just reported, and they get an average daily membership, and they plug them into the grant formula, and they divide their number. So, and you're correct, the adequacy grant includes, you get a little extra for free and reduced, you get a little extra for special education, you get a little extra for reading. So there are multiple pieces of that formula, and those come directly from the Department of Education for districts to be able to complete their budget. The second part of it is the SWEP grant. So the SWEP grant, for folks who followed it this past year, the state they dropped the fund $100 million to give a tax break in the SWEP category. So if you look at your tax bill, you'll notice that the SWEP went down about 40 cents. It's like $1.23 or something like that. Next year, we're raising that money again because they're not giving a break. So your SWEP went down $100,000. It's gonna go back up $100,000.
The math on this chart, that's the New Hampshire State Education Tax.
Yep, that's SWEP.
This was me, you said that the state adequacy support is based on our K-4 enrollment number, not the total sending out.
Yep.
I know that some of the districts we go to are giving us a break at some times. The number, what do we get typically per student on that?
So on the ADA for the adequacy grant,
Yeah.
$3,900.
Okay, I knew it was a free sum.
Yeah.
So it wasn't- shouldn't we be able to negotiate that out of this with charging us full freight?
Well, she said,
So your Newport contract does have, in their formula, there is an ADM component to how they set the Croydon rate. And that might be something that the school board, and I believe a couple of meetings ago, that was discussed in terms of looking at that formula and trying to negotiate.
yeah, we need to make
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, trying to negotiate a little bit further, along those lines, yeah. Yeah. So the net difference between those three categories is the $38,000 that you need to raise. Or 36. 93. Jen?
So you're at variation of this, the town meeting. What I think would be very valuable, and I don't want to get cluttered because it does change on, age groups, is you've got the matrix of enrollment in every school, in every grade level. It would be nice to know what the per pupils on that are. It would be informative.
What about?
That's a
The
good.
per pupil, what we're spending in tuition on all these.
Okay.
schools that we're- Yeah, but you get a sum total of elementary tuition, high school tuition, and you don't break it.
Yeah, we can add that to we'll add it to the district meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a question, I can't ever understand why SWEP is included as revenue, because I think what you're saying is if I take $50 from you and give you 100, you're considering that $100 in revenue. Is that right? Is that what's going on here? Because the SWEP money comes from the town via property tax or the school. It does not come from the state, it comes from here, some of it. So why is that not teased out as actual tax?
So if you look at the adequacy formula, the state says that in order to provide an adequate education to every student in Croydon, they're going to apply this formula, right? So in that formula, they say cost per kid $3,900, these other little added pieces. The cost of an adequate education in Croydon is $653,000. But by RSA, what they do is they take the adequacy portion and then they add into that the SWEP to determine what your final adequacy is going to be, because the SWEP is a given. By RSA, the SWEP is a given for the district in terms of how much money the district is going to get in SWEP.
Yeah, I'm talking about the part we pay.
Listen, I can't,
That's two separate categories.
they're two separate categories, but it is a school district revenue. It is absolutely.
The district has no control
No
over
control
what
over
the
that.
state levies.
No, I know they don't have control, I'm not saying you should pretend you have control, I'm just saying it is an actual tax on property, which goes to pay for the school, but it shows up as a revenue. That's what I'm saying, if I take $50 from you and give you 100 back, and you call it $100 in revenue.
She's been pretty honest about where that revenue.
I'm
It just seems dishonest, that's all, and this.
If it's dishonest, that's something that they have to take up with the state of New Hampshire. The
It's
state
that
of
lady
New
over there.
Hampshire is revenue for the school district.
SWEP is now, it stands for statewide education
Education
property
property
tax.
tax.
The only thing statewide about it is every town pays something.
That's right.
But it's the same as a local.
Some towns
tax.
pay more
It's
than
just-
others.
Right, and so
Shifted.
it's funny that you're calling it a tax or revenue. It just, and I'm not blaming you,
Well,
I'm just
taxes-
saying,
It's a revenue,
It
it's
is a
revenue
revenue
to
to
the
the
school.
district. It is a revenue to the district.
all of the tax is a revenue to the district. Everything that you collect is a revenue to the district, so I'm just saying, why not say it's something taken from the people of the district, rather than somehow magically being sprinkled on the district by the state? That would be more honest, even if you broke it out, so here's the part of what we're paying, and here's the
So
part.
here's what I think you could do, every taxpayer can do. You can look at your tax bill, and it clearly is a tax, we've always represented it as it being a tax. Your tax bill is made up of 4 items. You have local school tax, state SWEP, county, and town. There are 4 items on there. It just happens that the sweat tax is a revenue to the district. We receive a check from the town and we deposit it. To me, that's a revenue.
But it's still ours.
It's still our,
Everybody should know that.
I say we move on. Can I make a motion to move on?
She sees it as myself, revenue, $2.
okay, moving on.
So many hands. Aaron, I did not hear what you said.
I was saying that I
You were
don't, but I did have a question, on the per pupil cost, I sort of just raised that. Because and I know this came up as part of the survey in the meeting we had a couple weekends ago. With this new breakdown that you've done on the SAU costs on allocation, I'm just curious how that impacts the per pupil cost.
At CDS.
Or for each, because you made these two charts on middle and high school and then one for CBS. And when you apply the new allocation to it, does it have a material impact or how does?
I'm gonna be very honest, I did not calculate per pupil cost for this meeting. I'm happy to, but I have not done that.
My question's actually kind of related to that. It's on the SAU cost at the bottom.
Yep.
Where you split it out, allocated time.
Yeah.
And you've got it divided between elementary and high school.
Yep.
But I was wondering, is that elementary through the middle, like?
Elementary is CBS.
Okay.
High school is 5 through 12.
So you should change it for that.
I will change it.
Yeah. Rebecca?
I just had I guess this is more directed towards Frank, about the presentation. I know we were speaking about the presentation, you mentioned that Butler was TBU, that was contracted, and you said, I think, 2 years, but I think this year and next year, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that something that we can opt into, or as far as negotiation, or do they have the option of doing the express vans, or is it just strictly big buses?
They provide various kinds of transportation, and we would have to do a new RFP and sit down with them as our specific provider to look at different options. But right now, we have the contract for the one bus, and we're, as you know from our experience last year, having a bus, we're very happy to have a bus, so, yeah.
In that, like, once you have the contract that's written in stone, or any wiggle room to say.
No, we can always go and negotiate.
And then with, my other question is, Butler, maybe once we're done with that contract, is Butler really are they monopolizing the transportation service around here, or is there other people that maybe not considered?
There are other people, very, very hard to even get people to respond with a offer at the moment. In another district where I work, we have a contract till June, and we have been unable to get any response for an offer for the next year. So it's a problem.
Sorry, do you think it's because that we're looking solely at the buses and now you have to have somebody with CDL and all that spectrum, or is it, I think that we open up more options to non-CDL and smaller bus, or express van that's 15 people, where generally there's 8 people on a bus at any given moment.
Right now, the big issue is finding qualified drivers. I don't know the environment for non-CDL drivers. I don't know, Beth, you work with other districts, so you might have a better feel.
Yeah, so we,
CDL versus, non, and how that affect the budget and bringing that down.
so currently there are only 2 transport, meaning bus companies in this area. So First Student and Butler are the bus companies. When we do the RFP, which is the request for proposal for transportation, it could be restructured to include small passenger vans or very small buses. And I think that's a lot of what we heard a couple of weeks ago, that maybe is going to be a better option for us.
As far as, I spoke to the principal and trying about, or even the bus runners, what is the maximum students, number of students that are on that bus, and it's maybe I think I was told, if I remember correctly, so I mean, you have a bus that's 50 something, now that's a lot of waste of gas and space, and that might be somewhere to really zone in on saving instead of all these other forms.
So we have a year left on this 3-year contract, so that's the year that they'll start looking into that and how to change it. And I think we're gonna get all the feedback from, I hope we get all the feedback from, you know, what came out of the fire station workshop. And then that's what we're gonna work on next year.
Is there a, early termination clause in that contract, just?
I don't, I have to look at it, I don't recall that. They're very good about opening it up for, for changes. But we can certainly take a look at that.
Yeah, why not,
Yeah.
next year?
Yeah, we can take a look at that.
Your question?
Yeah, I have a really quick question. How do you estimate the kindergartners?
I'll let Nicole.
Mary Beth and I say, what have you heard?
Very scientific.
It's, yeah, I mean, shockingly, Mary Beth knows, I mean, because we kind of do have a pretty good idea, and right now, we both sat there like, nope, that one's not until the next year, that one's not, and so, right now, honestly, we were like, we definitely know of one. And so, that's what we came up with two. Last year, absolutely, yes, we had quite the surprise. And we also, I know that there's some child plan stuff that goes into it, but that's not, yeah, we do our best.
There's also the students that currently, and I know this is just from my standpoint, my son is currently in 6th grade, he rides school with his brother every day, brother graduates.
Mhm.
That means he's back on the bus next year. So there's those little nuances that are gonna come into it and have to be factored into the end equation as well. It's one of the things that, it's not just always about the current number.
I have a question about special ed, for the high school, it says $15,000, and when I look at the line items, we spent $15,000, so we know exactly what our special ed costs are gonna be.
We
And
don't,
in fact, what do we spend, we're spending $15,000 this year, or is it a different amount?
it changes every year. I'd be careful about students' identity. So, student needs change, and depending on our contracts and what school kids are attending, some include certain levels of special educational services. For example, Newport does include doing 3-year or 3-year reevaluations, and they don't charge us for those. So that can be a $2,000 expense just for the psychological. So,
That we're not getting charged.
that we are not getting charged for at Newport. If, Slinopee has a cheaper tuition rate for us, but when they do one of those, they do charge us. So, if we get by for $15,000 a year, we're doing really good. It could be higher. I do write a lot of that into IDEA grants, to try to offset some of that. This year, I've had a couple at some of our other schools, that we've had to pay for. So, yeah, 15,000 is not a bad number.
No, and that's
Yeah.
fine, I'm just wondering what they're actually spending.
Yeah, it changes.
No, this year.
Yeah, I don't know right off. We could look up, see
Currently,
what our
we're
expenditure
just
report.
about 7,500.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at the line items, and it looks like we spent exactly
Yeah,
$15,000 last year, and
it's
that seems
confusing.
funny, so I can ask, what did we
Yeah,
spend
and
last year, right?
And that's the same story for most of these line items. The estimated actual for this year is identical to what was budgeted. And
Well,
normally,
because it's just estimated. We're
Right,
saying we're
as
gonna
you're-
spend the whole thing.
if you're 3/4 of the way through the year, you should be able to have a run rate that's a little bit more exact as
Exactly,
forecast.
projection.
I'll look at it, but it's gonna be in that vicinity, and anything
Yeah.
above and beyond that, Frank's gonna put in the grant.
But I just think that's what confuses people on this
Right.
problem.
Yeah, it's all about that, just understanding. Okay. Question?
I just have a question on the custodial salaries, how come it went up 50
1%. Did they add on?
A what?
1%?
That's what it says.
What was the question?
Custodial salary.
Yeah.
Isn't that our
Custodians
part-time?
are, that's a real tough one for us because, we had first we had an individual, who, was pretty good and pretty reliable. That person left. We went to a service company because we weren't able to replace that person. And we weren't paying a ton of money, to be honest. And, that service is no longer providing service to us. That person is no longer, that service is no longer working. So we've been filling in with high school students, and we have hired a couple of folks who are, we had someone who was very, very good, but the money wasn't good enough for the distance they had to travel, so they have left us, and we're now hiring, we have a new person right now who we're very happy with. I hope it continues to work out. And we supplement still with a high school person. Yeah, so we have two folks still. But I think it's just reflecting the actual cost of trying to get somebody who will.
So is high school students cleaning the pool?
Not always. We have two different custodians and they work various days, so that it makes up that full week. Honestly, it works out really well to have two, because if one is not available, the other, this is a whole new, it's very exciting to have two. When I had only one, I had to do it.
Do they come every day?
There's a daily cleaner, yeah.
Okay. I just wasn't there.
But I'm sorry, I still don't understand, and this is the first time I'm seeing this, so, why 50% increase?
Just reflecting actual costs.
Just reflecting the actual costs and the positions that you have budgeted. So they did increase the amount of time necessary to clean the buildings. So we've been at 2 hours a day at a very low rate, very low rate. The new rate coming in was significantly higher for the staff member.
So what is it now?
It's $18.68 an hour. And that's up from 14.
And you couldn't get anybody?
We couldn't get anybody.
So 18 is the new.
18 is your new baseline.
That's McDonald's pay.
Yes.
It's better than some.
It's fair. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So just a general question on the sheet here that's Croydon Village School fiscal year 24 expense. We've got on the third line category over, we've got 2022 to 2023. Total year estimate. Is that really a year-to-date estimate?
No, we're estimating it for the whole year, budget to budget.
Okay, so you're saying at the end of the fiscal year?
Yeah.
The teacher's salaries that were approved at $103,000, but we're going to increase it to $100,000.
But there's a reason for that. So the school district has been all year long without being able to fill a position. So the budget that we created last year included a certified teacher. That position has not been able to be filled, and we're filling it with a part-time individual. Next year, we're gonna try and fill it with a full-time individual. Yeah, so we're just estimating it based on what we have in the building right now. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, so I'm going to adjourn this hearing. We get a motion, is there anything to do that? And call it a motion to adjourn the public hearing. To do that, I'll just move on.
Yeah. Does she need a motion to move to a regular?
No, it's just to close, you just need to close the hearing.
Okay, so, the hearing is closed at 7:46. And now I will call the regular meeting to order at 7:46. I will call from my left,
Aaron,
Jody Underwood, and public forum number one. And mind you, this is all about the budget. It's a regular meeting, but it's about the budget. So but it is public comment section, so come on.
So I know that I've been meeting this to death and I did see in the facilities or one of the line items that it's going up like $4,000 because of electric and propane or oil costs. And I just want to say again how important I think it is that we form a community co-op maybe with the church and the fire station and the town hall. We were able to do that where I work, and each of us were able to save $1 a gallon, which is significant. So, you know, I think it just needs to be a business that does it. Everybody has their own account number. You get billed individually. But because you're buying in total, you get a better price. So I know I keep saying I think it would be beneficial for us to do that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public forum?
Do all of those places use the same gas company?
Yeah, so we use Irving and actually, I know of two that both use Irving. I mean, I would assume that Goodrich, now Eastern Propane, would do the same thing. I'm assuming we use Goodrich. Yeah, we use Goodrich. I don't know that 100%, but I would assume that they would offer.
I think also what we're going to do is Neighborhood Energy is actually looking at electric bills right now to provide us some guidance in terms of lower rates with different vendors. So we'll set up a meeting with Russ and different folks in town to see if there's some interest in that. Yeah.
I wanted to follow up on the discussion from last meeting regarding where the annual meeting is going to be held. I know you guys have talked about looking into the fire station. Is that going to be the plan? Has that been confirmed?
I believe Jason said that the firehouse could be available for the school district meeting. So we should strongly consider that, I think. Did he say for both? Okay, that would be easier.
Yeah, it's really easier.
Okay.
So is that getting set up?
He's just waiting to hear from the town and the school whether or not they want to do
Okay, so.
Well, I mean, can we make a motion on that now?
We can make a determination independently of the town.
We don't have to vote.
Oh,
So it's how we run it. If it's good,
it. Notice where it's gonna be.
Yeah, I would say that's.
Have a vote. What?
He's just saying we need to give notice to whoever.
Yeah.
wherever
Yes.
Actually, it has to be on the warrant, so you're gonna have to decide that tonight.
Yeah, so let's just make that a decision, so we can get it.
So we want to call Jay right now just to confirm?
No, I think he's told.
Kidding.
So, I mean, there's no reason not to, we should just do it, right?
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Firehouse.
What was that?
It's at the firehouse.
What?
It's at the firehouse.
What?
Yes, just making sure, because that's what I'm gonna put on there.
What time?
What's the status of the white building and line betting? Haven't heard anything about repairs.
What was the question?
Wait,
The white building.
White building, so there's three strategic plan group has that as a category. If you go over, you can see it's right, we keep working on it, but it needs outside repair. There's siding coming loose and the skirting and that kind of stuff. So we know that its time is limited, and we need to look at alternatives. Recently, Beth and I just had a quick side conversation about what one of those might be, and we're thinking it may be, we can simply replace it with a similar unit. There's a really nice one that I promised that I would go look at over at Sunapee. They have put in a yeah, and that we may look at that and see. That would also
Same
probably.
building, just really upgraded in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah.
facade.
So that's a possibility.
What is the cost of that?
I don't know. No
But
idea.
when we looked during COVID,
Yeah.
we could get a used unit about the same size as what was over there for about $140,000. Brand new, I think they're probably 250 to 275.
So there must be more wrong with it than just some siding and skirting, because I'm right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if
Yeah.
that's all that's wrong, then
yeah,
give me a hammer and I'll go.
we don't want anybody going under.
You don't have hammer?
What's that?
We prefer no one goes under.
Nobody goes under.
What we don't know is, it's okay at the moment.
Yeah, and it's better that we don't know. Okay.
Everything's okay, but.
Public forum? All right, discussion items. The first is changes to the budget. And I actually have, I have a question to propose to the administration. And so you, I mean, you know, and I've said this the last few meetings, and I'm not satisfied really with the assessment scores that we've been getting. So my question to you is, what resources would you need that you don't currently have to make sure all Croydon students perform at proficient or better on the statewide assessment?
It would be beneficial to have preschool. Help to get our students in at a baseline level that they've already been in school, they're a little bit more used to it. For a long time, we're helping our kindergartners simply to get used to being in school, and that affects their day one.
So that would imply that there's irreparable damage that's being done by not having preschool.
I would say that we see students coming in that cannot identify their letters, even in their name, for example. There's many skills that typically students would come into kindergarten when you do your beginning of the year assessments that our students are not coming in with.
So, educational learning and progress is a function of time and engagement, more than it is anything else. And so regardless of cognitive abilities, over a period of time, you can see learning go up, and those learning rates are different for all students in different areas as well. So I think what Nicole is saying is that we have kind of a large number of students who come in who have not had the advantages of the early education, and they're just lacking some basic skills that have to be taught. So they're starting out behind. Their learning rates, there's not much you can do about learning rate, but it's a function of time. And so we'll get there eventually, and all kids will get to the benchmarks they need to get to, but it's one of the fallacies of grade level benchmarking, let me put it that way, because all kids are different, and we've talked a lot about individualized instruction and programming, and I think the way we're operating and the way we've moved towards that as a practice, and our teachers get better and better at it, that's probably our best path forward.
So what I will then ask is, I mean, I doubt all families will send their kids to preschool, so you still have the same question for K through 4. What would you need there?
I think the grant money right now that is supporting Ellen is going to, who is our, we have ESSER money that we're using to help with the gaps that were caused by the disruptions in families and in schools because of COVID. There's enough money for this year, there may be enough in that grant for one more year, but somebody like her who can very specifically hone in, and also using, we don't get a lot of Title I money, but that kind of money also that is specifically geared towards deficits that can, because we can identify through our local testing where the individual deficits are, and that allows us to target those.
So but you already have this person, you said.
Well, we have Ellen about 3 days a week. She's here, not full days even actually, but yeah, we do have one person part-time who is helping us with some of that. It'd be nice to have more of that kind of help.
And was she here last year too?
Yeah.
So And again, so that's somebody you have. I'm asking what you don't have. What programs would you do? What resources would you need?
I mean, having that position 5 days a week is a great start. But I think I'm not available to say programs that I would love to see because I would need to look into that further.
For other programs, so you're,
Yeah, I don't think
so it's something you need to think about.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced that canned programs are the answer either. You know, I think a lot of it is, just good teaching, good assessments and diagnostics, so that, and then the ability to, you know, to have the resources to, target those with specific instruction.
Are there other diagnostics that we're not currently using that you would?
Yeah, you know, some of the things, like we don't use the iReady, we use, whatever it is that we use. STAR, yeah, the STAR testing. So there are those localized testing programs, some of which are better at prescribing. And I know that iReady is one that does a really good job of that. And so we could look into some of those. They're more expensive. But certainly could be.
And how would we know they're even better, right?
Well, if you get that prescriptive teaching, you know, and if you can buy into the, you know, actually lessons and things like that are provided.
And do you know how much that would cost?
I don't right off, no.
And I imagine that would replace STAR because they sort of serve a similar purpose.
Oh, right, it would replace it.
So the cost would be offset by whatever the cost of STAR is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So iReady runs about $4,200.
Oh.
So, I mean, it would cost you a couple of grand.
Yeah.
Because you already have your STAR in there.
And
Your
that's
STAR.
That's short money if you're thinking it's actually going to make a big impact on what we're doing.
I think that was
One time or annually?
I would assume annually.
Annually.
Cut that in. Question?
Yeah, I think I remember it being mentioned, and also 2 Saturdays ago, brought up that one of the things he said we wanted to be better at retaining staff or teachers, so maybe that would fit into this, that we've seen that our schools really have more consistency in teachers that are staying longer, so I don't know. I think that was paying them more.
Yeah. I mean, that could help too. I mean, we're not very competitive when it comes to hiring, because our salaries tend to be, you know, we tend to model after Newport. You know, so that does make it a little bit difficult. And being short a teacher, you know, all year long makes it hard. So,
And let's not forget, we just had a pandemic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We just had a pandemic, which is,
Been a while, but this is before the pandemic. It's not just what's going on now. It's just true. I've been on board since 2010, and it's always been an issue.
I think the point being made is, the effects of the pandemic, the things that they're doing to remedy the situation are showing as much, it's slowly showing because of the pandemic.
I see, thank you for the clarification. I didn't hear anything.
Can I ask? I was curious, Nicole, your immediate response of what you would, you think would be helpful with preschool. Do you have any data, or do you see a clear correlation between the students who have attended preschool and their proficiency levels versus those who haven't?
I do not have data in front of me. I certainly could get some. It's a thing.
Anecdotally, because I sent my kids to preschool.
Yeah.
And they have always been really successful in school.
Yeah.
You know, I wondered if, just off the top of your head, thinking, you know.
I mean, in my mind, this is nothing that I get a bunch of data for in front of me, but when there's a preschool program, there's skills that are being learned, right? So just how to be in a school environment, how to work around others, how to compromise. We start thinking about where they're reading a lot more books than maybe is happening otherwise. They're noticing and identifying letters. They're singing songs. When we do our beginning of the year screener, typical nursery rhymes are not well known for students. Letters, things like that. Things that I'm not saying preschool every child is walking away with all of these skills, but I am saying they're exposed to things that definitely help. That's my opinion.
Just to add on to that, so New London Elementary has the James House, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
So my daughter went there and then went into kindergarten, and all of the surrounding districts for Kearsarge have the opportunity to go to James House, but James House can obviously support all of the towns and all of that preschool, so it is on a need basis or parents signing up. So if there's too much of a roll call, sorry, you're on that list, or whatever happens. So going into kindergarten, back when my daughter was that group, they knew the James House students going into kindergarten in every one of the school districts. And they talked about it openly because of the success rate of the reading. They had those kids coming out and doing reading groups because they were reading whole books. They, so they had to then accommodate for those things because of the success rate of putting them through.
So, but then there's also data to show that the Head Start program, kids who go into that compared to kids who don't, they all tend to catch up by fourth grade.
But we are a K-4 school.
Right.
So if you're concerned about our current scores, we're going to be behind, we're working towards these successes.
But they do catch up then, by third or fourth grade, they're there.
Yeah,
And it's
they're-
not a change that happens because of UK. If you start in kindergarten, you'll end up in the same place in fourth grade.
And so one of the things you have to remember is I report my data K-4 because our class sizes are so small. So you're seeing that data from students K-4.
She's talking about national study.
national.
Yeah.
Right, but locally, if you're looking for wonderful testing data, you have to remember that I'm reporting K-4. I can't give you just,
You've broken them out.
Yeah, there are.
So 3 to 4 get like early reading, and
if it's math and kindergartners don't do it, it's 1 to 4, for
the
example.
star ones
Yep.
are broken down.
Depending on who takes them, yes.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Right, you could give a result for just the fourth graders,
What do
right?
you guys grade level ones?
There are national studies that show positive gains that go 30 and 40 years out. When you have, there are qualifiers, high quality and 20 hours a week. There are two basic things that have to happen, but if you have a high quality school, a high quality preschool program, and it provides at least 20 hours a week, the results are very, very positive, even in across all social economic groups. There are benefits and well documented. I can get that research if you folks are interested. I used to carry it on my computer all the time years ago when I was doing consulting work. But,
And this is one of the questions that strategic planning is also addressing.
yeah, and I'll bring it to them to take a look at, but any old preschool or whatever, doesn't work. But if you have a high quality program, it's based on standards and play-based, there are very definitely benefits that will last long. And I think the problem that showed up in the study that you were thinking about with Head Start really had to do with quality and of instruction, and that's where they ran into trouble.
So that's a teacher by teacher basis.
Yeah, program by program, and neighborhood by neighborhood,
Yeah.
and communities where
That's
things work.
an
Yeah.
interesting challenge. So I think we're suggesting though that we actually, I don't know if we need to add to the budget, but 2,000 to get iReady.
That would be awesome.
I am not familiar with that already, so.
You're not ready for that?
No, I'm not.
You're not ready.
I am not familiar with iReady, so looking at me, I can't tell you if it's any better.
So I mean, you should look into it.
Yeah,
but,
and
I
it's
mean,
the
the
kind of
we
thing
should
that
be
I can,
looking-
for year one, I can get introductory money, the extra 2,000, probably out of Title IV grant money. So we can probably make that switch.
Okay.
But then it needs to be
But
sustained.
then it'll need
Then
sustaining
it'll have to be.
beyond that.
I see, that's just to start it up.
Kind of we got on with the grant, really paying off. We're getting way better data, but we now have to pay for it, so.
That's cool.
And that's a good one because it's like you can, if it is gonna do what you say it is, you can do it right away. As opposed to preschool, that's a bigger decision that has to be made. So if there's any other ideas like that are, let's just do it, sort of
So the
timeframe. then-
biggest, Vermont is a good place to look at high quality preschool and how things have changed. When I was superintendent in Springfield, I was successful when they passed the law that funded preschool for 10 hours a week publicly statewide. We were able to get high-quality preschool for all of our, not all, 90-some percent, 93%, I believe, of all our 5 years old kids came in with at least 1 year of high-quality preschool. We closely monitored that because we were spending money on that. Our kindergarten readiness scores just skyrocketed. Now, how that has progressed along over the years, I have no idea, and I don't know if they've been able to maintain that level of commitment to it. But the biggest problem with preschool is finding licensed teachers that are highly qualified and coming up with money to pay them, because right now the biggest issue with preschools is that teachers are not paid and they don't stay. And even folks who try to run private programs, the regulations are tough and the costs are high and folks don't have money to just pay to do it. So it becomes an equity issue and fairness issue for families. If you can afford it, you have it. If you can't, you don't. And it's a problem. Anyway, I could go on about the school problem.
So we don't need to add it. So I mean, I would suggest look into it, right? And then I read is one thing, but, be satisfied with that. Okay.
I'm just wondering if there's ever been any discussion, or looking at a program to engage parents of young children, preschool and kinders in literacy at home, like the school system providing books, providing parent training, because you guys do so much in the time frame that you have the children. But they're at home more than they're in school. So there's definitely correlations between parent literacy and engagement with books at home and the way that children learn.
I would also add to that, I mean, not exactly the same idea, but in the same vein, I've always wondered, would there be interest in, like, some parents, would they want to come in occasionally to help out in the school? I know obviously it depends on their work schedules and whatnot, but I wonder if that's ever been discussed. But back to this, the more parental involvement in some capacity. Yeah.
All good ideas, good thoughts.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just had a response to hope that the 1,000 books support kindergarten program that the libraries do around here is wonderful. And since we don't have a library in town, I wonder if we should do more to get kids aware of that.
Didn't we get them library cards?
Yes, when they get into kindergarten. She's talking before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, not understand. I mean, so we buy the kids library cards in grant fund?
But this would be before kindergarten.
Is what she's asking.
Oh.
She was asking if there was
a question, just in response to folks saying that, is there anything we can do to get families aware of literacy and resources? I was just saying that the libraries in Newport and Grantham and all across New Hampshire do the 1,000 books support kindergarten program.
I see, thank you.
Available.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Yeah. When?
I just want to say maybe as a little bridge from, the idea that there is no preschool to there could be a preschool someday, or what that early literacy piece looks like. Maybe starting with just a group where parents and young children can get together. Nothing that's on the budget or money or, someone could facilitate it, to have kids and parents, just get together.
That sounds like a
Once-
private thing, right?
Well, I was thinking of maybe talking about it through the school, maybe people with younger children or whatever in the community to meet together and have some early literacy activities and read together and just to kind of see what the interest is.
Sarah, actually, it's oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just thinking that maybe You have to be careful not to get me going too much with big ideas, because I tend to be a big idea kind of person.
And I tend to be an early literacy person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Necessarily in the beginning have to affect the school budget, that's all.
Yeah, and that's exactly what that is. It's a group of parents that get together.
Exactly. Right, and it's part
So I just checked, and Vermont, with its wonderful preschools, has the same basic need scores as every other state, which means they're doing stuff that's not making a difference. And I think it seems to me that the reason nothing ever works is because we keep doing this. Well, let's do a little more and you'll be a little better. Let's do a little more and be a little better. But I would like to ask Jody's question a different way. There's a number, let's say it's $1 million per student. We gave you $1 million per student. Could you teach everybody to read? I think you could. So there's some number between $1 million a student and 25, which is what we're spending. Where is that number? What's the lowest number there where you could say with reasonable certainty, we're going to get almost every kid to be performing? Is there a number, or is no number big enough?
I no number that I'm aware of. I can tell you that the big issue in Vermont is that they're funding 10 hours a week, and the research shows that it's a 20-hour-a-week minimum to get the success that you need, and they also have been unable to get providers. They have a tremendous need for, they have a lot of kids who want preschool who don't have a place to
So
go.
you're saying if they had 20 hours a week, it was a high quality problem, then
Yeah,
Vermont would somehow break out?
Yes, absolutely, because the research has said it proves it. Yeah.
It proves it.
Yes, there are longitudinal studies, and I will get them for the strategic planning committee, and I'll be happy to forward them to you as well. One was done by the Federal Reserve Bank, actually in Minnesota, but I can't remember.
So how much would it cost for us to get a high quality 20-hour? I'm saying, if you had $1 million a year, you could do it. Maybe for $500,000 a year, you could do it. Maybe for 100, maybe for 50. My question is, if we know that what we're doing for 1.7 million isn't going to work, we know ahead of time it's not going to work because it never has. What if we said, how much will it actually cost? Let's spend that money.
So
Let's do it.
I disagree with your premise that it hasn't worked, because for many kids it has worked. And as I said earlier,
What do you mean for all
learning
kids?
I mean, for all kids, the state
learning
law
is
says every school
the
must.
variable is
Have
time
everybody
of engagement and instruction. And with time and engagement,
So
kids
how much
will
time
learn.
engagement would you have to pay for? I'm saying, how much would it cost if you would have said that?
Changes for every
If we said, let's look at the numbers. If we said at the end of this year, we will give you all the money you want. At the end of this year, if 95% of the kids are not in proficiency, we're gonna run you out of town. Would you be able to do it? Or would you just say, I can't do it, I give up?
That's such a hypothetical that's unrealistic.
It's supposed to be unrealistic, but I'm just saying, could you do it? Are you saying you can't do it? Or you
I'm just
won't?
saying it's not, it's kind of a ridiculous thing to have the conversation about, because we don't have that information for you. I mean, you know.
Can you teach the kids to read or not? That's the question. Because if you can, then there's some amount of money that you would need. I'm saying, let's do that.
And we do.
Let's move on here.
Well,
It's a budget meeting. I'm asking you what budget.
I know, you're repeating yourself over and over again.
Because he's not answering the question.
I think it's good.
How much would it be?
Well, I don't think there is a number, because in all actuality, like I've been saying time and time again, there's 1,000 different factors that go into a child's learning. And no matter how hard these people actually work sometimes, they aren't able to reach every single child. It's just, and your numbers will reflect that. And a perfect example of the fact that I worked for years and years at Claremont, and my test scores were low. I switched schools, did the exact same job, taught the exact same way, and my scores boosted massively. I didn't have some magical pixie dust that I sprinkled around. It was just that the family lives are better. I mean, we have, drug addiction in this town. We have broken families. We have, severe poverty. We have a lot of things going on that affect test scores beyond what happens in the school.
Just to be clear, I want to understand that you're saying you spent $1 million per kid, you could not teach all the kids CDS reading.
I'm thinking that could be a possibility given the kids' home lives. I believe that to be true, because if you're going home to a drug addicted parent who's
with $1 million, you could actually be giving the family therapy. I'm saying.
Well, that's true. If you start to intervene at the family level, then
Okay,
it's like that. Are you asking the school board right now to intervene at the family level? I mean, this conversation is evolving.
Yeah,
I'm saying we know that it's.
That's not familiar after that, sorry. Okay.
Can you reel it in? No, it is your meeting.
Sorry?
Can you reel it in? It is your meeting.
Yeah, no, that's right, yeah, it's a little hard sometimes. All right, you're not gonna get answers when I'm here, so, all right,
That's
let's.
not the agenda.
Budget? Oh, this is a budget report.
That's the only agenda item.
That's it.
I just have to say something, and it'll be the only thing I say, but we are going constantly with this ridiculous conversation on the precedent that kids are not doing well. And that is because that this general group of people insist upon focusing laser on what's happening in the few months that these kids are here in the middle, and not looking beyond fourth grade. You yourself said, within a certain amount, that when people start to read around a certain age, everyone catches up. But you constantly, and I don't mean you, I'm saying the general you, does not look at the success of children leaving the Croydon school.
Yeah.
No, you're not, and you've said that. No, I'm just saying, because you said.
At the last meeting, I was asked that, and when I went away, I was like, oh, I do have examples. Oh, dude, I had a family from Sunapee tell me that they thought their kids were doing great at Croydon Village School. And then they went to Sunapee, and they were far behind those kids in the fifth grade.
I'm very surprised to just put out the data, and meaning the scores, and where the children are.
I'm talking about the ability of kids to read. Well, what are you saying?
I'm just saying, I know for a fact.
Like they're going to that school. So I know the parent that you're talking about. My kids went to Croydon, they went to Sunapee. Your kids did the same. Were your kids far behind? My kids weren't far behind. So I'm sorry, success. My kids now, like my son's been.
And then also, and then a few years ago, it was told to us that our kids, Croydon kids in Montessori, weren't doing as well in math as the kids that they had. So that was all the kids that we were sending there. So those are my pieces of information.
It's just.
But there's positives as well.
So the
But
testing
we don't know.
process.
I mean, that's the thing. We're looking at it like, oh, it's a low test score. No, I mean, I've seen great success in the school.
So what was happening 2 years ago is not happening now? The testing results that we got last year from Montessori were fine. And our kids were doing fine.
Well, I'll tell you that my son tests terribly, and he doesn't give a shit what he gets on those assessments because he knows it's not gonna affect his grade. He's on honor roll, he has a job, he's rebuilding the transmission. He broke, I don't even know the name of it. He's already been offered two full-time positions after high school. And he was just honored for something pretty wonderful that he did in his welding class for the community. So, you know. I just don't.
No, that's a good example.
And he actually frankly told me the other day that most of his friends don't care what they get on it. They want to get through it, they go in, they check their boxes and get out, because it's 4 hours and, right. He just, and he doesn't realize that that can
People are
affect.
making decisions based on that.
Exactly,
Right,
and that the overall grade of his school looks like garbage because he and his buddies don't care what they're doing on that test. He doesn't understand, you know, I haven't ever told him that. I don't know if it would affect his performance, if he would try to do better or not, honestly.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, it doesn't affect us, you don't care. I mean, I get it.
Right.
Interesting, yeah. Other comments?
If you offer him $1,000 to
Another-
do as well as
If I offer him
Yeah, you said,
$1,000.
I'll give you $1,000 if you can actually score at high proficiency on this test, would you do it? Then you would finish it. So what if we tried that? We could actually try that.
Are you gonna give them?
I'll put it in the budget. Let's put it in the budget to test the kids who will pay the
You'll
money.
pay well.
And we will know the ones
Alright,
who
so
don't
let's
well.
put up another
There's
hundred
Only
grand
another
on
reason,
that.
right? You heard the school board throw it on there. What that equate to, Beth, in the tax bill, about 3 cents?
There is a comment in the back, I know you're.
Back to a possible solution, rather than more problems. You were talking about the whole kindergarten thing, I don't know if it's even possible. But maybe, because I fully, I'm all for parent involvement, because I think that lasts a lot. As far as kids in school, unfortunately, it does unfortunately get treated as kind of a daycare in a lot of situations. So I mean, maybe as far as the whole kindergarten thing, would it be possible, would this help to maybe put together some sort of packet or something for registering kindergarten kids? Possibly like things you would like them to have worked on or where you want them to be before going into kindergarten. Maybe go back with parents when they register for kindergarten or something like that. Because obviously you can't just bring a kid to school because, but when you know they're going to be registering your child for kindergarten, is there any possible way to put together some sort of packet?
Depends when they register, right?
Like kind of an expectation thing of where places, you know, things you'd like them to work on, places you'd like them to be before they come to kindergarten.
No, I think that's a lovely idea.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the point, and you can give them something like point them to the 1,000 books before kindergarten, over the summer, right, things like
Yeah,
that.
it's something you can give them, a direction you can give them to try to work on
That's
before.
Right, I mean, if you're giving them real resources that they can use, I mean, that would also give them a reason to come into your office and tell you they're gonna be registering the next
And
year.
once we're fully staffed, we're able to do a lot of these things too.
Right.
Yeah. They're great ideas.
The administrative assistant.
Ah.
I got it on
How
my
many hours
list.
a week are they working?
Corona.
Yeah, anybody else? All right, so we're not changing.
I think there's another
Ed,
comment.
Sorry, Ed, what am I finding?
Quite all right. Might be a little Johnny come lately, but I'm being told that people can't even hear anyone because we're not using microphones that are so graciously set up by you folks.
The owl's not doing his job.
Oh, it could be the owl got unplugged, so it could be that I'm no longer using that speaker and I didn't realize it. Please hold.
That would be my fault.
Yeah, I shouldn't do anything.
Well,
She unplugged it.
That would help.
That would help, yeah.
Its eyes are still lit up though, which is.
I told you, I shouldn't have.
I'm sure it's,
It's on.
It's on.
It's on.
I'm sure it's probably the lack of ambition for people to stand up, grab a microphone and get their ass kicked.
$1,000 a person.
That was a very ambitious move.
Something.
All right, so any other changes to the budget is,
I don't have any to propose.
okay, so then we need to make a motion to adopt this budget and take it to the district meeting. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
You keep track of this, right, Kevin?
Yep.
All those in favor? All those in favor? Nobody's voting.
I said aye.
I said aye.
aye. All right, so it is unanimously adopted. And now we go on to the warrants. And so everybody's seen the warrants, just a simple
Right.
budget one. We should have a warrant to add to the tuition trust fund. And I'm going to propose this amount, tell me what to say. We currently have 13 students in lower tuition schools. And if projected for going to those schools next year, if we could take half of that budget factor and put it into the trust fund in this budget, that's my suggestion. I think it's around 60,000, but that, I would love you to give me that number.
So, sorry, so you're saying at the end of the year, whatever is left over is pre-slated to go into a trust fund?
No,
Put it in now.
so right now we budget all our kids at the Newport rate. Did we talk about the Newport rate?
So, no, but
Yeah.
let's go back to your premise that, say that again, you
Half
wanted
the fudge.
half of the fudge doesn't come until next year. So what do you propose, are you talking about using this year's surplus money?
Possibly.
And taking roughly $38,000 of that and putting it into your trust fund?
We're thinking what we're budgeting for next year. We've got some number, about $1 million, right? But there's some amount that we know isn't going to get spent.
But your warrant is for the end of the year this year.
Right.
So it's gotta be from this year's unassigned fund balance or raise and appropriate.
Gotcha.
And if you took
One
it
or
from
the
the
other.
surplus,
If
then
you
the
take
tax
it
rate
from
would
the
go up.
surplus, then your tax rate's gonna go up.
Gotcha. Well, if we.
So instead of raising 38,000 additional dollars, you're gonna drop your revenue $35,000. So you're really gonna be raising,
Yeah, so we're
This
going
goes back to the
what you really
conversation that we
want.
started about what's our strategy.
what's your
Right.
strategy for
But watch, I mean, information is changing now, right? We might not have these lower cost seats later. We need a tuition trust fund. So we have to put money into it now.
Well, I mean, we are budgeting at the Newport rate, so theoretically, you're still covered.
No, we have the fudge factor in there because we have the lower tuitions. If we get 4 kids moving to town, we're covered.
Oh, yeah.
When we're paying the 19,000 per kid, which is what Newport's rate is next year, they're increasing it by 8%.
but that's not until next year. So your warrant is about this year.
This year.
That's right, it's
I
about,
know that, I know, I'm just talking about why we need to put money
Yes,
into the
yeah.
tuition trust fund.
yeah.
So,
And I needed to explain that.
so we need a wording for, we must have one from a previous year.
Oh, yeah, that's not a problem. If the question is, how much do you want to put in there from the unassigned fund balance? And when you do that, instead of being at 777 for your tax rate, you're gonna be at 797 or $8.
Because it won't offset.
It won't
taxes.
offset it, you're gonna take that revenue away, so
So you'd be better off just raising appropriate new money,
you could raise and
so
appropriate.
that you're not changing the proposed budget that you now have.
Yeah, that would be less
Because
confusing
that would be confusing.
on the day of the meeting. If you did it that way.
It's now the same thing.
No, I think that's,
It
it's
would.
raised appropriate is normal.
Confusing
That's how you do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it is, I'm saying it'd be more straightforward than trying to do the other way.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, you don't want it, because now you've
That is
already
correct.
adopted your budget.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, and so it's always the current, you're never taking it out of the budget.
You're
just-
never taking it out of the budget, but here's, you want to look at it from this perspective too. You've already decided that you're going to look at tuition and think of how you want to move forward with tuition. You're already built in with a surplus next year, right? So next year you want to decide how you want to budget and how you want to roll money into your trust fund, right? This year, if you do it, you're going to raise and appropriate from taxes and let folks.
No matter how you do it, you're gonna end up bringing a little bit of short-term pain.
That's right, it's
No
gonna be
matter if it's
short-term
this year
pain.
or next year.
Right,
That's
but
right.
then we have our insurance, basically.
What about spreading the pain out over a few years?
That's what we do, yeah.
Yeah, $10,000 or $20,000 per year as opposed to a whole 60 or 20,000.
Yeah.
No, of course.
Well, I think that the bigger question is, do we want to adopt that strategy? Because it's gonna be a multi-year
You
phase in.
set a goal,
Said it before.
you set a goal, and you've actually started to do that. The last couple of years, you put 25 and 25. You just have to set the goal for what you want it to be, and then you'll know it's gonna take you 6 years to get to.
And I forget how many kids can we cover right now with what we have in the balance?
Right now, we can cover 8 kids.
And that's still fun.
Hmm.
In some sense, we don't even have to budget that much. We can reduce the budget here by that much, by half of it, right, by the fudge factor. And then if we raise the tuition trust fund, then we're even.
I think I, more than tuition, in my own mind, knowing we may have to replace this white building, it might be wise to put some money into the facilities trust, which would help soften the blow.
Don't we have a facilities trust?
Right, but we don't have $250,000 there, yeah.
Facilities about 29, 20.
And that way, if we can get by for another year or two and do that, we would, when that comes, it won't be quite so hard.
That makes more sense to me, listening.
To do what?
To put money into the facilities reserve fund for a few years, where we already have about 8 kids built into our tuition reserve fund. And if your goal is to replace the white building in a few years, it would make more sense to build that up.
Well, we don't know yet what we're gonna do. That's, right, that's up to the strategic planning to come up with a plan and present that to the board. There's other options from that, right?
But it's gonna be an expense no matter what, right?
I don't know.
But maybe not a facilities expense.
Right, maybe not facilities expense.
What's the real disadvantage to doing it the way that we're doing it now, where we over budget? I mean, it still accomplishes the same means.
There's no disadvantage, so when you stop over budgeting, what's gonna happen is in that subsequent year, you're not gonna have any surplus and you're gonna have to raise $200,000.
Yeah, I understand that the transition would be very difficult, but my question is, what's the real disadvantage that would make us want to do that transition? Like, because it seems to be working pretty well now, where you.
Because we're not gonna have the lower tuitions, we're gonna be spending that money later, we won't have a cushion.
So like if Montessori goes away, basically.
Yeah.
Now you,
Exactly, and that seems likely right now.
For 1 year, right? For
No.
fifth grade.
Because the laws, they're getting these.
Yes.
District grade.
Yes, they could go to Newport, for example, for 5th grade, and then request a transfer to Montessori for 6, 7, 8, and then go back into a public school. So yes.
But I thought that there was a change to the educational savings accounts where people are gonna be able to have more access to funds to cover.
That has not passed.
Okay.
Jody was saying that is
that's
a
a
potential,
hypothetical.
that's a hypothetical. But the other thing is, she has, at Montessori, there is more room availability in the 6th through 8 department anyways.
All right, so maybe it's.
So maybe they're not going away, but boy, I don't know, let's see.
On our policy committee, would it be something to talk about as far as making a policy that when you spend out of the trust fund, it has to be replenished with X, Y, Z, that we always have that coming? I can't handle that.
You spend policy, you spend trust fund money when you need it to replenish, like if you need a lot 1 year, I mean, you wanna, that's rough, because, yeah.
And I think it needs to be a warrant article to put money in.
It does,
Right,
yes. Yeah, it's better to have a target.
You're right, well, we could have an unofficial target.
It's better to have an unofficial target for however many students you wanna have a cushion for and work towards that target.
Right, so.
What's the most we've ever seen come in and surprise us as far as like, oh my gosh, we got
2018? That's what caused your deficit. That was pretty significant. I think there was 7 or 8.
Yeah, there's a tax-
Yeah, it was.
There's a tax rate in here.
Oh, yeah.
That was like.
So right now,
Sometimes.
so we have enough to cover 7 kids right now, so we're like just barely
You're just on the-
covering
yep.
what was the worst.
Yeah, but the rate, the tuition at that point in time was only 15 and change.
Yeah, but I'm assuming when you said 7 kids, you're dividing by the current rate for Newport, right?
Not next
When you
year.
said how many kids we can cover with.
Oh, yeah. Well, Yes and no. We have the new rate. The new rate is a little higher.
And that was the
than-
question I forgot to ask
Yeah.
earlier is,
Yeah.
how much of our surplus did we just give up because of Newport? Because the budget number didn't change, right?
Did you add that into
So,
the total?
no. So we have no surplus for the following year. The rate that we currently have
Mhm.
is exactly what our surplus is based on. We're talking about a new rate for '24. So you haven't built, you don't have a surplus for next year.
I know, but the Newport rate went
30
up, right?
Yeah,
But
so
the budget,
the offset is about $33,000.
right, because you didn't increase the bottom line.
No,
That's what I mean.
no,
So we just gave
no,
up
we
the
didn't.
30,000.
Well, we gave up 2 students, basically.
That's what we did.
We
Okay,
gave up
that's
2
what we did.
students. We had the conversation and said,
So it's gonna be a little tighter this year.
it's gonna be a little tighter, but not.
Not a lot.
Not-
I want to restate that to make sure I understand it. So we are budgeting for this coming year at the $18,000.
At a 4% increase instead of 8.
At a 4% increase instead of.
Yes.
Thank you, because that's what we
Yes.
anticipated, but then they came in with 8.
They came
Okay.
in with 8.
But we're keeping it there, which just reduces our cushion a little bit, but it's not a
Yeah.
big deal. Okay.
Yep. So just to recap, the Newport tuition rate when we built the budget was not in. We budgeted 4% higher than the current rate, 18,000 and change. The rate came in, it was 19,100. So it came in at 8%. The difference between what we budgeted and what it came in is about $33,000.
Is that going to agree to, or is there a negotiation room in that, or is that?
No,
that's
they,
the contract.
they have all the chips.
It's according to our
All the
contract with them. And we
Wish I
are.
had an
And-
ace or something.
Which is up after next year?
Sorry?
It's up after next year.
It will continue to get renewed unless we do something, but we can always negotiate the following year's contract.
So we talked about this at the last meeting, and I'm curious to know if did you make any connections with, you were gonna reach out to the Sunapee principal?
Yeah, I have not had a chance to talk to them about that. I will. That is on my list, but I will.
Because one of the ideas that we talked about, for anybody that wasn't here last time, is can we get a different anchor school or a second anchor school? So that way we have a little bit more negotiating leverage, because right now Newport knows they're our only option.
Yeah.
So if we had another one, then you can, use that to our advantage a little bit.
Have some cards.
Yeah,
And
have
some
some cards.
I didn't understand what you just said, Joe, that the contract renews every year, but we can, and maybe I missed
It
it.
automatically renews every year.
Unless
So
we,
when can we negotiate?
We can't renegotiate.
unless we initiate a renegotiation, it just renews under the terms that it's
So
established.
did we try to initiate the negotiation?
Well, we
Yeah, we
talked about
talked
this at the last meeting, and I don't think anything has happened yet.
So we talked about two things. One was reaching out to the principal at Sunapee, and the other was doing a joint meeting
board
of the school
meeting.
boards.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have agreed that we will do the joint meeting as required, actually, by our contract, to see what Newport has to say to us. And we can certainly say some things to them. And then, at the same time, reaching out to Sunapee to find out where their interest level is.
But we can also have a meeting like we did a few years ago, just the AN chair from each school, from each district, and have a real discussion.
Yeah, that might be more effective.
Yeah. But we still should have, but that should happen before the school board, the joint school board meeting.
And preferably, we'd have had a conversation with Sunapee before that meeting. as
That's
well.
right, too.
What you just said?
Yeah. So I'd like you to repeat it.
Okay,
Yeah, got it?
Okay.
Okay, so another warrant, yes or no?
I think so.
Yes?
So the question is, how many kids do we want to be targeting to cover, right? And that kind of backs us into our number as far as what
Or
we're.
we just said 2 a year.
Just add 2 a year,
For now.
So that's a 40, just shy of a 40.
$40,000, and this is going to be raise and appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay,
And that was tuition, not facilities, is that what I heard?
this is tuition?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
So that's a new article, number 3.
this is gonna be number 3.
Yeah.
Yep,
This will be number 4.
So we're doing 40.
And the question that'll be asked, of course, will be, does that mean you're going to start budgeting less fluff every year, right? That's the question that will be asked.
potentially. That's, the school board has to make that decision. Most boards, when they do tuition like this, they just set a goal and they just work towards the goal, and that's outside of how you budget.
Fair. But how many kids are we covered in now with our budget?
So now you'll be covered 9.
So 7.
7 plus 2.
7 plus 2.
9.
So you could reduce the budget by a couple. 9 seems like a lot, right? We could reduce the budget a little bit to balance that out by 2 kids.
Well, if you reduce the budget now by 2 kids, you're really reducing it by 4. Because we're already down theoretically 2 based on the new rate.
No, right, I'm asking with the new rate, how much are we covering? How many kids are we covering?
In the
So
reserve
you're-
fund or in your?
Well, the rate is gonna cover all the kids. It's gonna cover.
How many potential extras are we?
What's the
able to
fudge?
pay in?
The fudge in
For
there,
the 13 kids who are going to a cheaper school. Less.
okay.
Are you asking about the budget fudge?
Yeah,
Or
you can
are
go
covered in the?
Budget.
Okay. So let's go to the budget. The budget, as it stands right now, covers all the kids at the high school and
At the Newport rate.
at the Newport rate at 4%. We are under budgeted by $34,000, which is 1.75 students.
But at 1.75.
It's $20,000 a kid almost, not 38,000.
That I get.
So it's 2 students.
34, you say, so.
And how many,
Keep
give
going.
me the numbers, how many kids are covered in that budget? That's all I'm asking.
Less than 2.
Less than 2.
No, 2 fewer.
No, so-
2 fewer.
That's different. not
2 fewer
What's the
students.
total? What was it before? Before it was 7, now it's 5?
It's gonna be about $10,000
It's
times
$10,000
the number of
times-
kids that are in Mount Royal and Montessori.
Yeah, which is 130,000.
That's your fudge factor.
That's your fudge factor, so you're talking what's left after it's all, sorry.
And I think,
So
your
we're gonna end up
we're gonna
getting
ask for
40,000.
Can we just have one conversation, please?
I just want to clarify your question. So you're saying if we ask for $40,000 to go into this fund, you're saying should we therefore reduce the budget by
Or by
$40,000?
some amount to at least offset it a little.
So you've adopted the budget, so you're gonna have to go back and
That's-
unadopt it.
That's words,
That's
right? Let's,
So if you do that, you're now going to,
Well, you
So
would
you're
still
gonna-
have to do the warrant article to get the.
I was gonna say, you have to guarantee that they're gonna vote for the warrant.
You would have to include it in the warrant article to both appropriate the 40,000 and
change the
reduce.
budget warrant article, and we would just have the 40,000.
So you're assuming they're gonna say yes to
Exactly.
$40,000.
Right, that would be,
yeah, what if
It's a
they
separate
say no,
warrant.
because it's raised and
That's
appropriated,
exactly.
right? It's not
So
coming
your
from.
warrant article needs to be twofold. One, appropriate 40,000 and reduce
You
the
can't do
other
that.
budget.
Let's do the trust fund one first.
You wanna do, so then you're gonna do the trust one first, and then your budget, well, you're gonna have a contingency article is what's gonna
Yeah,
happen,
we've done
right?
that before.
Okay, so,
that is muddy.
so,
Does that hurt your head? I'm sorry.
If it hurts our
so,
BA's
no,
head,
no, I just,
I'm just trying to be
You had
rational.
it.
why at this point, I'm just gonna ask the question, do you want to reduce your tuition in your main budget?
Because,
So this article is separate.
Yes.
And the voters get to say, yes, we want you to do this, no, we don't want you to do this. It's totally up to the public, and that's their risk, right?
Well, the reason would be because the tuition fund is there to protect you if you get unexpected.
Tuition
students.
fund was there before we started this
we have
conversation.
40,000
But she's saying we grow it.
Well, but you
And-
might not have the 40,000 more.
let's say we have the 40, if they don't vote on it, I mean, we can always just change the budget at the meeting too, but.
Why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
I think that would complicated.
I think you.
What I'm trying to do is reduce the tax burden.
Right? So you can reduce the tax burden if you drop the budget $40,000 right now.
And then how many kids are in the fudge if we do that?
So the kids that are in the fudge, if you drop 40,000 now.
So you'll be
So you've got 13.
No.
You've got 9, 10.
But you're already down to, because of the increased tuition costs.
And how much you said you're down, you started,
You already-
and now we have 5, is that? the answer to the question?
So,
all of our other tuitions.
You're already down 2.
All of our other tuitions are going up.
Everybody's going
Yeah,
up.
so-
You have less students at Montessori and Mont
I-
Royal.
I don't think we have as much money in that
Don't either.
in
I
that
think you're gonna
budget
end up with
as-
90.
as people think. It makes me really nervous to roll the dice on our high school tuitions.
Yeah, I think that this is being
I think maybe
overcomplicated
leave
a
it
little
alone.
bit. If you're gonna have a warrant article that raises 40,000 for this fund, then, and you wanna go the route you're suggesting, Jody, I think you either have a follow-up, another warrant article that then says, would you now like to reduce your budget by 40,000? Yes or no? Or,
But if you already know you're going to do that, you should
Just-
drop your budget
but
40,000
they,
now.
but then they might say no to the warrant article, and then you've reduced your budget by 40,000.
You might do both.
Nicole,
And then
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
your hand's been up for a while.
I thought the goal of the trust was to start creating this base for the future. But now we're saying that the goal of the trust is to use it.
If we need to use it, it's there.
Well, that's the purpose of over budgeting with the Newport rate, is that's our trust fund, basically.
Exactly, and so I
Sorry,
thought
sorry.
that this amount that was supposed to be raised on a warrant was so that in the future you could move away from the current model.
Right.
Right, so then why would you take it out if
I'm
the
gonna
goal is for
bring,
the
I'm
future?
gonna put one other little factor into this equation. You now, in effect, are also reducing your unassigned fund balance by $40,000. Okay, so you're taking 40,000 out, you're gonna reduce your fund balance, and you're now, when you go to the following year, you know, when we talk about what you're comparing against, right? So as your fund balance goes down, that's a revenue stream right now on your revenue sheet. And that's offsetting your taxes.
Right.
So
Our
if
taxes would go up, right?
your tax, in the following year, you're gonna have a higher
Yeah.
increase because you're,
I just think it's safer to leave it
Stay
budgeted
where
the
you
way
are.
we have
So
it.
basically,
Yeah.
And
right
then-
now,
That's fine.
in effect, we're carrying that surplus, and that's our trust fund year to
Yes,
year.
yes.
It just kind
Pretty
of
much
moves
is it.
along.
Yes.
But-
Yes.
exactly,
So,
because
but
of the
what
way they
Jody's
budget.
wanting to do is establish an existing trust fund.
We already
so that
have
we
it,
Don't
but we already have an existing trust fund.
build up
Build up.
and then
Build
no
it up.
longer put anything into it, so that we don't have to have a surplus. That's
Yes,
what you're
yes,
saying.
exactly.
But then that would require a hell of a lot of future knowledge as to who is going to go to what school.
And it does this to the
That's
tax.
always, it goes
We
like
have-
this.
Yeah.
It's like a
We
yo-yo
have the surplus every year right now because
of the way
we
you.
allow for that fluidity to happen with,
Because of.
like, my daughter decided that she hated Sunapee last year and she wanted to go to Newport. Our budget can handle that because.
Yes.
Yes, because we're
we have a
budgeting,
surplus.
we're just budgeting at the anchor school level.
Right, but
Period. But some of the schools cost less.
I feel like this
it's
is,
already taken.
Anyway, I think we're agreeing to stick with the
Yeah.
budget numbers that we had, and we're now back on that trust fund thing, and how much do we want to put in there?
Okay, so you said 40,000,
Yeah, I said, but.
you say 40, so the question is, how
20,
much?
30, 25, it doesn't matter, I mean, you know, this is for us to decide.
Yeah, how much and where do you want it placed on the warrant? Do you want it before the operating budget or after the operating budget? Usually,
Yes.
that's where I have it, but you know.
We usually do it after.
Yeah,
Yes, you do.
yes, you do.
and are we putting the cart before the horse because we haven't really decided definitively if we want to switch strategies with.
You have not.
And the strategic
Yeah.
planning
So
committee.
let's do
It's just a little rush at the moment.
Where did
Yeah,
that?
let the strategic planning committee go through their work.
come from?
Just like this.
Say just like this, so in order to put money into it,
So 1 year. is
1
before,
year, we
we
said
want a trust fund.
$25,000 from unassigned fund balance to the trust fund.
Right, and we used to do it every year, to keep building it up.
Wait, they just moved it from existing procured money?
Yep.
I thought you just said we had to.
Yeah.
You can
It
raise
can
it.
go two
It
ways.
comes from
You
surplus.
can, it always has to be on a warrant,
Okay.
always. It always has to be a district meeting, public always has to vote on it. It can be from unassigned fund balance or raise and appropriate.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Got it.
And send it.
Yes.
Okay.
Just
So-
checking.
It's getting late. I mean, we can.
Use money we already took or take more money to put it.
There you go, that's it.
I think we need to put some serious thought into which way we
You
want to
could
go.
raise the tax or lower the tax.
I say we put zero into this trust.
Well, then we don't have to have a warrant.
I agree.
You don't want to figure it out.
Okay.
Just like the way it is.
We're back to three. Moving along.
Let's have a vote to approve all warrant articles.
They're only fair.
Have we approved, warrant 3, so we're good, so we don't have to do anything.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
You have to approve them.
Approve the warrant, please.
We need to take a vote.
Yeah, take a vote on the warrant, please.
On 3, oh, we didn't.
On Articles 1, 2, and 3, well, the money articles you need to vote on. I don't know. that you
I thought we
vote on
just
the others.
voted.
They voted to, you
Did they
voted
vote?
to adopt,
They voted
to adopt the
I
budget.
tried.
We voted to accept the budget, now we have to vote to accept the warrant.
Yes, yes.
Just kidding.
Wasted money. Yeah, that helps.
Okay. Don't you get rid of the first one? Just kidding.
Whoa.
There we go, sorry. Anyone want to make a motion to approve the warrant articles as written?
Are you not allowed to make a motion? I'll do it. I will make a motion to approve the 3 articles as written.
Normally the chair asks for a motion. I mean, but nobody's sitting there doing it, I do it. So you can, I don't even need to ask for the motion, you can just make a motion. So you made a motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
So I'm affected here. Aaron moved.
Good, there we go. You did it. Yeah, short form, people say so moved, right? All right, we got a second? Warrants, all the warrants.
I thought I was going to do it better.
Yes.
Never.
We're done at 7:30. I was like, I can drag a king.
All right, Kevin seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous, I guess. You said aye? Okay. That is all. We have another public forum, if anybody has any additional comment?
Turn off the heat first.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
As a Croydon School Board, are you going to support our Croydon School Board District budget at this meeting in March? Wholeheartedly, are you gonna support the budget that we just approved, that you just approved at our March
I'm
meeting?
gonna present it at the March meeting.
Correct, and you just voted I'm not talking 1, 2, 3, wholeheartedly supporting a budget that is presented to the town.
I'm going to do that job that I have to do. If somebody comes up with a very interesting proposal after the meeting, anybody can change their minds about that.
But you're not gonna have a prepared statement in support of a budget that is otherwise?
We'll find out.
377 people on tonight.
We don't have to pay your $1,000 over there, but you know, I want to entice you. All right. Next, anybody else public forum? Is still have a meeting going on, folks? Any other public forum?
Motion to adjourn.
All right.